It's a foreign one. I grew up in an environment that where snow does not ever exist or fall down. I grew up in a hot, humid environment in South Florida, so snow, it's a foreign idea, and it was a kind of a fantastical thing, like something that I didn't quite know how it felt, or would feel, tasted, or if I'd like it or not. And it seemed like something I wanted a very temporary relationship with, because I was always very into what is home and what is natural and what is comfortable. And so it was something I was curious about and wanted to experience, but didn't, not to the extent where I was willing to like beg my parents to take me. But when I finally encountered it, it was pretty amazing. But it's an energy I don't feel the need to get super close to. I like the idea of it probably more than the actuality, but there is something about a snowfall that is unlike anything else. Several. Not conventional ones. Well, eventually I had cats, which I'll get to. But I had, my earliest memories, I had a guinea pig, which is really like, I had a lot of allergies, so my parents were trying to find pets that were hypoallergenic, and a guinea pig was one. A guinea pig, if you don't know, is a very sloth-like creature, and very cute, and I just always would try to engage with it, to the point where my parents got me a guinea pig leash, which was really just a cruel torture device. It was terrible. Should never exist. And I called him Lino because I was really into Thundercats, which was like a cartoon in the 80s. And he was not Lino. Lino was like a badass, and he was the opposite, but he was adorable. And I had a hermit crab that I lost for like a period of 2 months, and I gave up hope on. I found him in my toy chest, alive, somehow, miraculously, still alive. And then I had 2 cats, which I was allergic to, but my allergies didn't surface initially. And the first one was RC, named after a Transformer. Clearly, like my childhood cartoon watching kind of shaped my surroundings, everything. And it's the only female Transformer, so that's why I named her RC. And she was a badass. She like was a street cat we found, so she would bring in rats, live animals, which was actually kind of more traumatizing than badass. I was a sensitive kid, and I was like, please don't do that. But she died when I was staying with my grandparents one weekend. She ate something like a toad, something poisonous, and so that was difficult. But we got another cat, which I don't know. I know why, because my parents were trying to console me. I had really loving, supporting parents, and they're like, okay. But I was allergic to cats. But we still got another cat, and that cat's name was Sparky, and that was the best cat in the world. Really, just like the greatest. And then I got to a point though where I was so allergic that I had to give away the cat. And to backtrack with RC, before RC passed away, we realized we were going to have to give RC away because of my allergies, and the only stipulation was if we gave the cat away, I would get a Nintendo. And that was the only way. I'd been asking for a Nintendo for a long time. That was the only way I acquired a Nintendo. And then with Sparky, sadly, that's how I got my Super Nintendo, which it still pained me to get rid of Sparky. I knew it was for my good, and the Super Nintendo did cushion the blow of giving up a childhood pet. But those were my 2 strong pet relationships. Man. This is interesting because I separate that in 2 categories. It's hearing about something really terrible happening to someone else, not something that happened to me, but finding out something that happened to someone I was very close to that was terrible. Something that, outside of being murdered, is what especially women fear more than anything else. I mean, and I think hearing that changed my relationship with the world in a lot of ways. My perception and my own perception with how I view the opposite sex, and how the responsibility of my species, not species, but sex, has to not endanger and create a feeling of fear by women. I think that was a very defining moment. I think that really, it was interesting because one thing came up was me instantly like, okay, I'm not capable of ever causing harm to another person or violating another person's trust. And I think the other was this just understanding that I could never understand on a very personal level what that was like for the other person. But it completely changed my view of how I project my energy onto everyone, but especially onto the opposite sex, and to a level of awareness I could never have gained without it feeling very personal and connected, even though obviously it wasn't with me. I think that was one. And then it's hard, it's funny, that's more, even though that's really not comfortable, it's finding one that happened directly to me. It's trickier. I'm not quite able to access it, but knowing myself, I'll be able to come back to it after a completely unrelated question is asked. Love is surrender. It is giving everything up and everything you think you know. Love is a loss of control. It is an opening of yourself. It's disarming. It's taking everything you think could defend yourself and giving it to the other person. It is a release, a free fall, a lack of control, but at the same time, complete trust. And it is joy, bliss, and fear bundled together. It's everything you've been chasing for and everything you've been wanting, everything that has led you to this point. And it is also everything that makes you want to turn around and go back to where you originated from. It's my imagination. It's my escapism, but it is changing because my reality is my happy place now, and my fantasy and my imagination and my ability to always go deep into this fantastical world, this imaginative world, is becoming more of a escape, and more of an escape from what brings me true joy, which is living in my reality, which is creating and realizing the potential and the product of my imagination. So my reality is my joy. It is a place where, when the real world becomes harsh, especially as a child, it's where the impossible or seemingly impossible to obtain becomes obtainable. It's where there are very little limits to who I can be and how I can be received. And it's a place where you're supported and comforted by the idea that there are no limitations, and only that by your own mind. and it's where I can feel the most alive and the most somewhat in touch with my best self. My relationship now with my imagination is to harness and almost capture those best parts of it and bring it out, almost like taking it like from like in that movie Poltergeist, like taking it from this other universe world and bringing it in its untouched form into the reality that I live in. I want to unify. Starting from. Just drop this down. I hope that's not how I don't want to destroy the world, obviously. Okay, so I want to change the world by connecting people's best part of themselves, the part of themselves they cherish and the ideals they cherish most with the darkest, most hidden aspects of themselves. I want to help unify those two elements of light and dark. I want to create works of fiction that help us accept and love the deepest recesses of our personality and who we are and who we can be, and in turn love others unconditionally and see each other as a reflection of all the good and all the bad. And I want to create work that helps connect others in a way that it goes beyond our surface and beyond the stereotypes and beyond the divisions that are so solid right now, are so solid in dividing us right now. I love how curious we are. I love curiosity. I think that I love how you can never quite pigeonhole someone, and that someone's curiosity of something or baseline desire, which is always there, comes up, and it surprises you in a way that doesn't surprise you, if that makes sense. It's we're not that complicated, and yet we are, and it's a very wonderful experience when you think you understand someone and they surprise you. And sometimes it's unsettling, and sometimes it's disappointing, but sometimes it's really beautiful and it's really wonderful. And I think that that curiosity is what kind of spurns these unpredictable actions of people. I think that when we look at animals, what we love most about a panda or about these really mystical or cuddly animals is something that we can always find in human beings. And even the most prickly can have the most tender. When I was a kid, and I'm tying into 1980s nostalgia cartoons, but my favorite thing was seeing a bad guy having to work with the good guy, and to seeing a different side of someone I had perceived as a threat or negative, and to see them humanized for a moment. Even though it was a cartoon, that's something that I didn't understand why I loved that so much as a kid, but I think that's what I love most about humans, is that even the very worst has something in them that makes them relatable, or something that can connect yourself to them. And although I have very strong opinions and a strong biasness, and I can be very black and white in my opinions of others, I always derive so much joy over discovering the good in someone I didn't think could possess any of that quality. I would say talk to yourself in a very practical way. Talk to yourself, communicate with yourself. I think out loud is actually really helpful, as much as like I think I can communicate with myself now internally. It's very important to tell yourself that you're of value, tell yourself that you're wonderful, or tell yourself when you're not pleased, or when you feel disappointed. You got to communicate with yourself. You have to have a relationship with yourself, and I think that it's tough. Like, I know I would tell people when they're going through the hard times, try to imagine like your future self and someone that has overcame or just survived and learned and has grown stronger just based on them still being here, surviving, and think about knowing that you could overcome that moment of difficulty. But just talking to yourself, saying, yeah, this sucks. I know, this moment, this is a hard moment, or this is a good moment. One thing I struggle with is catastrophizing, something I still do to this day. It's very easy for me to just think of the very worst scenario to the most crazy extremes, and also with very little connect to like one thought or very little connection to like where I am now. And I think I would tell people that talking to yourself can settle the mind, saying out loud, like, stop, like, take a breath. I think talking to yourself can help you love yourself. It's a practical thing that you can do. It's not just something that's just like an idea or something kind of out there, abstract or esoteric. Just talk to yourself and tell yourself you don't suck. Tell yourself you're going to be okay. Tell yourself, I can get through this. Especially if you feel like you can't talk to anyone else. Build that relationship with yourself. If you feel all alone, learn how to feel with yourself. Not alone when you're by yourself, if that makes any sense.